Hey,
Hey man, nice to see you here.
good to see you. How you doing?
I'm I'm happy to see you in this group, man. I'm really happy. It makes me happy to see that you keep joining and participating on this stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Hey, Abby.
Me too, Mauricio. Me too. It's been too long, sorry. You
Yeah.
must have been doing cooler things.
Yeah, I've been
And
moving houses.
That's
so,
exciting stuff. I hope everything has gone
Yeah.
mostly to plan.
Yep, I'm at the
mhm.
new place. We got there. Glad to be back.
Awesome.
Welcome back as well, John. And, and Kirsten, all of our old friends are back. Everyone just wants to come celebrate the maturity model finally getting merged in. It's so good.
Thank you.
Nearly.
Good
Fingers
to be
crossed.
here.
We still got a couple more days. Sorry, we have new headphones that we're trying to configure next to me. So that's the joys. Give it another minute or so. Tends to have people coming through, but if you haven't yet pulled up the doc, let me grab a link to it. And there's some notes in there of things I know we want to chat about, but feel free to add anything else that I am either forgot or not aware of yet. So
Hey everyone, Atul this side.
welcome back, Atul. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Abby. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. All good. All right. All right, I figure we're all recorded anyways. We can kick off. I think so. I think Nima, this might be your first time joining us. Mauricio, it's first time in a long time joining us. We've been trying to do intros at the beginning for anyone who wants to introduce themselves. If you don't have anything, this time, that's okay. But just to try and get people familiar with each other. So if anyone wants to say hello with a quick what they're up to and why they're joining, this would be a good time.
Sure, I can do the quick intro. Hello, everyone. Nima Kaviani. I work for AWS, working with our customers on platform related stuff. And I think you saw that we launched Canoe 2 weeks ago now. So here to respond to any questions or any thoughts that you have around Canoe. A little bit under the weather, so you may notice it from my voice. So I'll probably drop 30 minutes in, if you don't mind, after I, get into all the conversations related to Canoe with you all.
Yeah, I can go next. Quick introduction. Just Mauricio Salatino. I'm working for a company that's called Diagrid. We are behind the Dapper project, but I've also just finished publishing a book about platform engineering. it's a very like a very practical book. Sorry, contributed to it. I'm super happy that he's here. And yeah, I'm a very practical person. So the moment that I saw Nima with this initiative and the working group, I decided, okay, I just need to go and contribute there because I just want to go and do some technical stuff. So yeah, that's why I'm here. But I will try to join this meeting, every once in a while.
That was just a subtle, hey Mauricio, we miss you.
Yeah, I know. I'm just so full with meetings that it's sometimes it's hard.
No worries. Cool. Yes, so Nima, thank you for joining despite being under the weather. I appreciate that. So we can definitely move Canoe kind of up the ranks and try and get you off the phone and back to bed and to some fluids and rest. I think there's no real agenda. All I did was sort of put in some of the questions that we often have people who are sorry, back up. It's quite common for us to have projects who are applying for Sandbox to the CNCF come in and have chats about what they're up to so that we can help advocate for them within the CNCF to join the Sandbox projects and all those. These are some of the questions that we use as like guideposts just to make sure that we can understand what people are up to and make sure that we understand and can like get involved and all that. So don't feel like you have to like, prepare a paragraph for each of these questions, but if those can help you sort of introduce Canoe and what y'all are up to and how we can support you and get involved, that would be awesome. So I don't know if you want to start there or start with questions.
Yeah, I think I can start with just giving you a high level information about what Canoe is. So we have been working on Canoe for over a year now. I think it started as the idea started when we realized that the number of enterprise scale customers that we work with, they're interested in building developer platforms, and they're more or less doing the same thing, but they don't talk to one another. And there was this interest from all of these big customers to kind of know what everyone else is doing, know what projects they're actually focusing on, how they build their IDPs, how they scale their IDPs, what are the scalability requirements or promises of each one of these individual technologies, and what are the best practices to utilize them. So, we realized that the CNCF landscape for technology is also pretty vast, right? That we have almost 300 projects in the technology landscape for CNCF, and it becomes really confusing for folks to decide how to mix and match these technologies if they want to deliver an IDP, let alone if they want that IDP to be actually scalable and secure to the scale that these enterprise scale customers require. So we started kicking around the idea of, okay, what if we bring all these different companies together so that they can have a conversation? And then it evolved from there to basically deciding, okay, if all these companies are talking to one another, what are the projects that they're going to choose to build their IDP based off of, so they can have that common ground to talk about the specific technologies, but also to move the conversation away from the technologies and then to practices. So this interest was formed with this group of users who wanted to, solve the technology choices in the first place, and then decide on technology practices and share technology practices afterwards. So I think that was the beginning of it, and then it wasn't that we decided to kind of like start this outside of CNCF. We've been discussing with a lot of the CNCF folks for quite some time, with Arun Gupta, with Taylor DeLazel, with Dims, and a few other folks who are heavily involved with CNCF. And eventually the idea that we landed on was, well, let's start outside of CNCF, get disinterested users together and see whether there is enough momentum, if there is enough appeal, and for such a working group, and whether we can make sense of what these user companies want to do together. And from there, decide on what is the best place for such a group to actually live. So yeah, that's how Canoe is formed. And then we worked over almost a year on patterns, practices, figuring out what capabilities these companies want to address, figure out the subset of technologies that these companies want to combine together. And that's what you see in the latest release of what's available on the website for CNOE.io. Yeah, so let me stop there if you have any particular questions, or if you want me to move to the next set of things that you have on the document, I can do that.
So Nima, just to clarify, like when you said that you've been working on this for like a year, that's AWS people with customers. It's not multiple cloud providers coming together to come up with practices and patterns, right?
It's been AWS and AWS customers, but the position for AWS has not been an ISV in this, right? We have been a member of that organization. So it was basically us and others that thought, it's a good idea. Then we decided to invite Intuit into it. Sorry, not Intuit, Twilio. And then Adobe, and then Salesforce. So the list of companies interested in similar type of conversations has been growing. But yes, the idea started between AWS and Autodesk.
Makes sense. Great.
Okay, so let me see if there's anything.
One quick question, because this is
Of
like an opportunity for us to learn as a working group. Like some of the people you were chatting to in CNCF are like quite aware of what we're doing here and quite aligned and all that. Like, but I'm from the best of my understanding, we haven't had any interactions between the platforms working group with the white paper we were doing and now the maturity model. I don't think I've had any of the people that are in CNOE reach out about the maturity model, nor have I reached out because I wasn't aware to reach out until like 2 weeks ago. What could we have done to try and were you aware of this working group, first of all? And second of all, if you were, what could we have done to create a more kind of early integration between us to make sure that we were kind of pulling in the same direction, which I think we are, to be fair. Yeah.
So I think there is certainly a lot of overlap between what you guys do here and what we do, but I think the focus for CNOE has been to be very selective about the set of projects that we want to choose, and that was one of the considerations we had when we decided on whether or not we want to bring this group under CNCF to begin with. Particularly because, first of all, not every project that we're going to select for CNOE is going to be CNCF. For example, we have Terraform and we have other projects that are not CNCF related, right? But those happen to be projects that are heavily utilized by these customers or by these group of users. The other reservation that we had, or the other point of consideration was, CNCF basically very clearly prevents kingmaking or advocating one project over another, right? And so I'm not necessarily implying that CNOE is trying to kingmake or basically advocate for one project over another, but we really wanted to solve a tactical problem. And that was looking at the set of technology choices that these users have and say, okay, for that particular capability, we're going to use this specific technology, without having to be bound by the rules and regulations of CNCF to have to then make it appealing to other people operating in that same space. So it was from a customer, from end users perspective. And we had along the way some ISVs who wanted to come and promote their own agenda. But I think, the tendency was to always keep it really close to the users and kind of help them with the IDP plans and practices that they want to kind of deliver, right? And none of the projects, I mean, even though in the tech radar, you see that we call out some of the AWS projects as the projects that these companies use, the essence of the set of technologies that we are going to use to build, the CNOE IDP is going to be primarily around open source projects, right? So it's not AWS, it's not based on AWS set of technologies. It's not based on any particular ISV set of technologies. It's basically these end users, companies deciding on what technologies they want to choose and whether there's an overlap on the technologies that they want to choose, right? So those were part of the reasons where we decided, let's actually put the agenda forward, see whether that makes sense for everyone, and then decide after that whether or not bringing it to CNCF actually makes sense from CNCF's perspective, given all the governance and antitrust and anti-compete requirements that they raise in CNCF.
So I think what you said makes sense, but it kind of seems to contradict what I'm reading on the the link that you sent, like the front page of it. It's like, what is CNOE, problem statement, etc. Like, there's a lot of reference to specifically like the CNCF landscape, the CNCF community. So I think you kind of like, there's like a lot of hard line, like it doesn't necessarily match up with what you just said of like, this isn't necessarily targeted to CNCF. This is like more open-ended in terms of the tools. So I think that's where maybe I think some of the confusion may lie of like, it's
So
not, I don't think the two are correlating, my opinion, just from what I'm reading. Like I would think this is like, this would be heavily like integrated within like a CNCF collaboration, but what you're saying doesn't seem to be that way. So yeah, maybe you can clarify.
So I think, everything that we like, these users are, heavily Kubernetes focused, right? And basically they use Kubernetes to operate in their platforms. And as a result, the majority of the technologies that the collective of users choose together is going to be inevitably CNCF technologies, right? Not everything is going to be CNCF in terms of the set of technology choices, right? But there is a distinction between technology choices and also practices, right? And I feel like we are still deciding on what is the right set of practices that we want to put in place. And so, how it fits CNCF, whether or not the agenda that we have actually matches the agenda that CNCF has in interacting with individual ISVs and individual users. I think that's the part that is still, in the works. But in terms of technology choices, yes, it's a mix of open source CNCF technologies, obviously, plus open source non-CNCF technologies. Also, if there is messaging there that doesn't necessarily align with what I say, it could be that either I'm like a little bit under the weather and not, necessarily kind of getting my thoughts together right, or it could be that, the content has diverged from some of the latest plans that we've had. So if you flag it, I'm happy to engage in conversations with you. What you see in the website is open source, so you can just go to the CNOE website, GitHub repository, and just put comments there, and we have the community engage with you on the conversations.
It would be interesting to know, Nima. It's like, for what kind of collaborations are you open, kind of like with this group, right? Like, are you open to get other cloud providers on board just so they can bring their patterns, or are you open to, yeah, because I totally understand the not going into CNCF for the fairness, right? Like for making sure that only CNCF projects are covered, because I totally believe that that's a good point for not going into CNCF, right? Like to make sure that other projects that are still not in the CNCF can be included if they are being used, right? But I wonder, collaboration-wise, how do you see it? Who do you see joining the group for help, or for adding more patterns, or for adding more resources? What kind of collaborations are open at this point?
So, we've made some distinctions. First of all, it's an open governance model. If you go to CNOE governance, GitHub repository, you see that we have a simple governance model in place, which is very permissive, and it is totally open to other cloud providers to come and join. We've had conversations with folks from Google and Microsoft about this as well, so it's not that they're not aware. I'm sure at least some people in Google and in Microsoft are aware. And there are two sets of users that we are considering for CNOE. One is the core members, which are the enterprise scale users looking at the same set of technologies at the same scale, dealing with the same set of security and performance requirements. And those are the ones that would that I think we prefer to have as the core CNOE members. And if they come in and if they nominate themselves, it's like a voting mechanism that we have in place. And if you get majority +1, or like 50% +1, then you get accepted if people vote you in, right? But for like smaller organizations, or for you know, ISVs, the individuals can obviously, you know, come and contribute 100%. In terms of adoption of the technologies to everything that we publish, we intend to make everything open and publicly available. So if you're a small organization that does not necessarily fit the bill as a core member to join the cohort, but you still find the patterns, practices, and tooling that we're going to release interesting, by all means, you can utilize it, and you can receive support and guidance from the community in how to utilize the tooling.
And we can contribute back, right? Like, so we can actually send contributions
100%.
and okay.
Yeah. We already have people from the open source all contributing, like opening issues, sending in PRs. And for the individuals, we do not necessarily look at, you know, where you come from when you make those contributions. As long as you're aware that this is Apache 2.0 and basically everything that you contribute is open source, and that it can be used under that Apache 2.0 license.
Perfect. Yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it works, as you've mentioned, like it works really well because what our working group is doing, we've often had chats about whether or not we can maintain more technical implementations. And the reality is the governance model of our organization and the membership model of our working group hasn't been fit for purpose for that. So it makes sense to have a different like group that's going through that. So in a lot of ways, it's a, you know, a good peer or a good like kind
I
of
think so.
a community kind of ecosystem there. So
I
yeah,
was talking to Josh, and I think the two complement one another. Particularly if you look at the set of things that we're putting out, we are building, you know, reference IDP implementation based on the set of technologies that we are actually advocating. And, you know, Josh was also saying that you at one point started looking at, you know, having a reference implementation, right? So while I think you being under CNCF probably makes it harder to have only one reference implementation, it could be one of the reference implementations that you kind of advocate for. That's part of how a platform could be built, right?
can point at, yeah.
And but I think it's important to kind of you know, clarify this, that the intention for CNOE to kind of settle on the subset of technologies was to kind of, you know, put that technology conversation behind us, because it's very difficult to bring people on the same page when it comes to practices and patterns if you do not agree to use the same set of tools. Or at least do not agree to have similar set of tools that kind of try to achieve, you know, very consistently the same set of goals. So if you want to publish patterns around how to, for example, you know, use the developer portal to then, you know, apply GitOps practices to spin up cloud resources, it's a lot easier if you talk about it in the context of Backstage, Argo CD, and Crossplay, that it is to talk about it in the open context, and then try to decide what is the specific technologies for each one of these bits, and what are all the variations that you can have in order to cover, you know, that end goal. So for us it's important to get to that end goal as quickly as possible in terms of, okay, this is the right pattern given these set of tools, and this is how you do it. This is how every user company in this group is actually still thinking about doing either thinking about doing it or actually doing it, right?
Nice. Yeah, I think I might push back a little bit and say that by going to the tools, you're sort of tying yourself to current technologies versus pushing forward the industry. And so I think there's a world there where I hope that we can call out gaps in our current tooling and our current technologies as well. And I hope you will, right? You're seeing this stuff at scale. You have such a great perspective there that like saying because these tools exist and that's what we're using, you know, that's where we're at. So
100%.
yeah, just a small pushback there to say, you know, it's a lot
It's
of
a
opportunity
very
that
good
we have. So
observation,
yeah,
actually. And I think I totally hear you, and I think that's a valid point. I think one of the things that is important with these enterprise scale users, and that's why I kind of had that focus on enterprise scale users, is because these bigger companies are slower to adopt, but also slower to move away from a set of technologies, right? So their technology choices are usually like 3 to 5 year investments, right?
Mhm.
So yes, it's very much appealing for the new technologies to come in and replace, you know, the older or the existing set of technologies, right? But it's not as easy for these bigger customers to just jump off of the older technology to the new technology, right?
Absolutely.
That's why the scalabilities and the patterns and, you know, the maturity of these projects matter. Now, I think we also, because CNOE is an open model, if it happens that, you know, let's say company X decides that the new technology to solve, you know, let's say GitOps problems is appealing, and if they do a POC and that if they can convince the rest of the group that, hey, this is a direction to take, or this is like a tool to actually start looking into, nothing prevents us from looking at those set of tools. But the reason this has started, and maybe that's a piece of history that I kind of missed, a lot of these users that we started working with, they were on a Spinnaker as part of their developer platform, right? When a Spinnaker started to kind of, you know, see less traction or less involvement in terms of patterns, practices, and tooling, it was an important turning point for a lot of these user companies to decide, okay, what technology or what subset of technologies do they switch over to from Spinnaker? And so that's why, you know, it was important for them to kind of make these decisions collectively with another group of with a group of other users of similar scale, so that they know that these 3 to 5 year investment plans that they have in technology choices is not their plans only, and there are other user companies moving in that direction with them.
That makes a lot of sense. So
Pile
great.
on. The thing that has worked in my past, and I have worked for some of these bigger companies, is establish a baseline. It can be tool dependent. As long as you have something working as a starting point, and that's the point of a reference design,
Exactly.
then you can change that out increment by increment. If something breaks, you can back it up. So, you know, let's not let perfect be the enemy of progress. A baseline with tools specified, and everybody here knows that nobody's married to the tools. We're married to the process.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think you nailed it. That's exactly what we've tried to achieve.
Yeah,
just sharing some experience.
Absolutely. I think that it's about getting I think that it's very exciting, and I've added to kind of the near-term roadmap about getting above the tools, right? Because I think that's the thing that this group is probably has the shared kind of passion around the most, or like than the work that we've been doing. So yeah, I think that's because right now it seems like a tying together of technologies rather than the higher level perspective, and that's kind of coming, as you say, so that you can build that shared perspective. So that's really helpful that you shared that. So that's really great. So one, I guess, like I'm keeping an eye on time and really appreciative of you not feeling well and still being here. So one thing I think would be very like selfishly to this group very good is if anyone from the CNOE like central leadership team would be interested in becoming a reviewer. We're sort of on the final days of putting the maturity model into V1 before KubeCon, and it'd be great to understand, you know, whether or not we make any changes at this stage. Who knows, if you find a drastic error, it would be something we'd want to know before we publish. But also if it's something it gives us an opportunity to challenge our idea that we are, I think, kind of pulling in the same direction, just at 2 different levels of abstraction. And if this will be a good way of testing that theory, maybe. So I don't know if you want to bring that back.
I've gone through the maturity model document, and I think it was very interesting, actually. Absolutely. Let me actually talk about it to the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And between myself and some of the other core members, we'll certainly allocate somebody to kind of like provide feedback on the maturity model.
Yeah. That'd be great. Just because that would give us that. Yeah.
I'm a newbie, but I'm happy to be a reviewer. So just count me in. Just let me know when you want me to review it and
awesome.
what to look for. Happy to do it.
Amazing. That's sort of as we'll move in. So I want to, as I said, I'm keeping an eye on time. You offered us a half an hour despite not feeling well, and we're at that half hour. So I just want to open the floor, make sure if anyone else who's on the call has more questions about CNOE for today. My view is that this is like the start of awesome conversations rather than like having to get every last ounce of that conversation in. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a good last question. So if anyone has anything else they want to ask before Nima pops off the call for today, floor is open.
Yeah, would love to have you, Mauricio. I see Mauricio saying in the chat
Yeah,
that
yeah,
yeah, please join in.
yeah.
I mean, like we're deciding about, having like a decided cadence for meetings for community meetings, whether monthly or bi-weekly. My calendar is kind of crazy, so I'm trying to like either delegate for someone else in the community to kind of pick that up, or we'll just do monthly to begin with, and then we switch to bi-weekly if we see enough interest. But 100%, it's going to be open for collaboration. Individuals at all level are welcome to come and contribute and challenge us with the ideas and thoughts that we have, and we welcome any and every opinion, of course.
My 2 cents on that is we can set up the meetings more frequently than not and cancel them if you don't need them. But it's so important on all these teams just to get your goals clearly defined and get the key success criteria clearly defined. And if you do those two things, then solving the problem is actually a lot easier for everyone. So again, my 2 cents, and I'll chip in. Just let me know how I can help.
Yeah, join us on CNOE Public. I don't know if you have seen the channel, but CNOE Public is, where we have most of these conversations.
Okay.
Join us and,
Thank you, I will.
yeah, and then share your thoughts, ideas about, meeting cadence or any other thing that is a concern or a question, and then we'll happy to kind of discuss it.
Be
on
careful what you ask for. Sharing my thoughts, a dangerous thing.
That
Well,
on
we
the
welcome. Of course, it's going to be awesome to have you, Joe. Yeah. All right. So with that, if you don't mind, I'm gonna drop a little quick earlier, and then hopefully we'll connect in other places.
Hope you feel better soon, and I'm sure you'll
Thanks
see.
a lot. Have a good one. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Get better. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Awesome. So back to the top of the board. I think we were doing, so have we had new people join in? So we did the intros and things, and then we'll get into working group stuff. Do you yeah, so for working group stuff, who's going to KubeCon? We ask this each time as we lead in. Is anyone gonna be in Chicago in a couple weeks? We've got Colin. Sorry, you didn't get the nod. Oh no. All right. If you are, there is some or aren't but want to sort of stay involved. There's a few things. There's going to be a colo day, a half day on Monday morning where we're going to have a few speakers. I think we have maybe 4 or 5 people signed up so far, and still open to figure that out. So if you would like to join us and speak, there's a CFP for that. We're also going to do a booth rotation in the afternoons. So we've got a few hours each day in the afternoon with the booth, and we're going to have tag people around to have a chat. And if you're going to be there, Colin, want to sign up? I think it's a comment only spreadsheet, so we'll get Josh to add people based on comments.
CFP?
It is, if you go into the doc, it's I've put a link to it in the shared doc for the day, the working group running note doc, if that helps. Cool. We have yes, and then due to Leanne being on holiday and I don't think actually coming to Chicago, you've been stuck with my artistic skills, which basically includes completely ripping off Leanne's amazing flyer design from last KubeCon and attempting to not ruin it. So I put together a bit of a flyer. There's some big old red marks on the stuff that still has to get solved in there. But if you have any comments or questions about what is on that flyer or suggestions on how to make it better, you are welcome to share. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, I guess maybe that's one that's worth pulling up while we're here on the call. I can do a screen share so that we can so I've literally copied ripped off the one side of the flyer, which was exactly what it was in Amsterdam. So this is like what the tag is about. Just changed over the booth name, and that was it. The second one is around the schedule. So I've added in the artifacts working group that we have now, which is awesome, and tried to add in if there's anything on the schedule that we should call attention to other than what's there. So I know, Colin, I think you're speaking. I don't know if that would be reasonable to put on here as a part of the tag stuff, or if anyone else knows of any other tag people speaking, like that's sort of the type of stuff we want to call attention to and support, is like tag members speaking.
That would be
And then, yeah, so shoot me over some details, Colin, and maybe we can get that on there. So, and then the paper, it's all redded out because we don't yet have the Permi link for it, but the platform engineering maturity model, I basically stole the first kind of intro paragraph from it, about why there's a maturity model in order to help organizations identify. And then yeah, threw in the model itself with the usual all models are flawed, but some are helpful style warning slash introduction or whatever, to try and get people thinking about how to use this. I don't know how to rotate that, sorry, on the screen. Thinking about how to use this rather than just like blindly either loving or hating it, and to call out to come join our group and talk about it. So that's the current thinking. The link for how to, or like the link for how to see this is in the document that we are using today. So in here with the flyer. So have a look, and yeah, so they don't have any feedback on the call. And then obviously have a look and bring anything back to Slack as well.
trying to load it. I think the Google's just having trouble today.
Yeah. Oh, it might be. Make sure that it's properly shared. Yeah, anyone in the link can view. Cool. So just want to make sure that everyone can see it. So you should be able to, if Google stops struggling so much, we can, it should load. Cool.
Yeah, it's something on my end probably.
Awesome. And then I guess no rest for the weary. So Chicago's in 2 weeks, but Paris happens in a few months in I think end of March. And a couple things just to call out is it's always fun. As I said, we're going to try and support Colin as a speaker from the tag. If anyone else has an interest in speaking, the CFP closes November 26th for Paris. So I recommend to put some topics in. And there is a initiative, there's a Cube Train Slack group in CNCF, which is trying to bring together, I think we have a lot of Americans on the call today, but bringing together some of the European cities by train. So if you are an American who wants to maybe vacation in and around KubeCon in a different European city, you may want to check that out. Or if you live in Europe, you may want to check that out. And they're trying to basically like book out entire like carriages in order to kind of bring people from like London, Berlin, etc., into Paris. So, which is quite a fun initiative, I think. So I wanted to call attention to it. Anyone else want to chat anything KubeCon?
There's the boost.
I think I heard something, but I didn't catch it.
Oh, I'm talking out loud. I forgot about I'm finally in the dock, and so now I'm seeing the booth duty and everything else.
Cool.
Did you have any? I put a comment on the review on the PR for the maturity model. I didn't know if you already went over it this morning, or if you wanted to solicit comments on the maturity model, because it's pretty short. You might be able to just share your screen and get some comments.
Yeah, on the maturity model, as in the like the PR.
For the V1. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. So we can, if no one else has anything else around KubeCon, we can jump the queue. Michael, I see you there. We want to spend definitely a few minutes on the platform thing, the platform as a product paper. But I can.
Sorry, I didn't mean to like skip somebody.
If it flows, right? As long as we get to all the topics in the right amount of time and all that. So I'm gonna keep a close eye on facilitation timing. But yeah, so we've got so on our topics here, we've got the maturity model getting ready to merge into main. We need to PDF it and do a few like blog post about it, like for releasing and a few other kind of admin-y things, but we're sort of getting there. And so I think there were some questions that I have not replied to yet. So that one came in since I last looked. And that, so I think, but you're saying you've put some more comments as well. So cool. So you're suggesting basically, sorry, I realized I may have sped read that, but what you're suggesting is let's go through what it might look like live and how people feel about that. Colin, is that a right read? Cool. So yes, so everybody, if you haven't grabbed that PR before and looked at it, this is what we're looking at. So this is the platform engineering model. It's listed under the platforms working group along with all the other work that we've done, which is cool. And on the right, we've got a few sets of contents. One of the changes that's being proposed is that we have removed a lot of the content from ahead of the model and placed it into a tab down below. So these tabs were previously there for each of the aspects in order to be able to look at one aspect at a time. However, we've put some more kind of high level context down there as well. And I think some question on whether or not that seems user friendly, maybe. So I don't know if.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was outside of that at first, because I'd been reading through the PR and the markdown, and not necessarily seen it live. I do think it's confusing to have context there alongside the other aspects in the tabs, and it just kind of hides the detailed content away. Like you have to know to click to get to investment, or I guess you could click on the table as well. But
I think I fixed that. No, I'd had that working at one point, so I'll have to figure out why that broke.
yeah, I looked at it. The individual tabs the targets don't match up. They're just like.
That
They're
must have
funky,
changed.
like
Okay.
ASDF.
I'll make a note of needing to do that before we merge. Let me. Yes. How do other people feel?
One from just a thought from a totally superficial aesthetic thing was it's very, very, very short now. And so it feels like on initial read, it feels like there's not a lot of content there, even though there is a lot of content there. And I think that's where I was surprised when maybe the context stuff got thrown in when there still is the other aspects. And I was thinking maybe moving the context back out could get us some length back.
You think basically we're not getting enough credit for all our hard work?
Kinda. Like really, at the end of the day, it's like you're gonna read it and you're gonna be like, "That's it," but it's not really. That's it. We know, but
yeah,
totally superficial.
Okay, cool.
But I did like you kind of jumped when I read through it. We jumped to the aspects, and then we get down into then it talks about how the model was constructed. When I'd kind of expect that to come before the aspects, and then the aspects are almost like the model, right? That was my thought.
Yeah, so what you're saying, sorry, go on.
What if we had just like if we moved it out as Colin is suggesting, but then had you know, a link to it up at the top somewhere where it's like, you know, need additional, like, do you need the context, like, and just have a document link that would scroll down to it. That way, like the aspects are like that table, the tab table is just the aspects and doesn't have anything besides the aspects in there.
So you're suggesting like put a link like here that's like go look at the context, and that context be like a separate page or something somewhere?
No, well, yeah, for the link, but the context could just be taken out and put like, you know, below the detailed kind of below the model detail. Yeah.
So like down. Like, so this whole section of the context of this work would actually just kind of float below each of these table each of these tabs, like however much content that was, that the rest of the context would just sort of float below like conclusion does now. So we would sort of have like model detail, context, conclusion, and like, yeah.
Exactly.
Cool.
I'd kind of counter just a little bit, just I feel like I would put the context up top with the other at the end of the first section as like method. It has a lot of good like method information, and if it was a scientific paper or something, it's like how did we come to these conclusions?
Right.
Usually comes before the conclusions, and the model detail feels like the conclusions to me.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I think putting it before kind of, I think it chronologically fits a little bit better instead of kind of having a mishmash. Even I liked what John was saying, but I do think it still feels kind of out of order if you're throwing it at the bottom. It's like, okay, but I'm trying to get to the meat. Like I want to at least like see how we got the meat before I just, get there. I hope that makes sense.
Cool. So I think that PR that went in, I think today, maybe, yeah, merged 17 hours ago. So last night for me, but earlier today for some of you, had a lot more in it than that, which was one of my concerns with that PR. It had like I added another review to reviewers, like in here, it's not just moving the tabs. So I think this was an important PR to merge. Like it mostly is, but like I got a little bit OCD around like M dashes versus like normal dashes. Like it's got silly stuff in it, but it's got stuff. So I think now that we have this, we can talk about like, and it's allowed us to have this visual that people can load up as like a deploy preview, which I think is really helpful for like, what is the experience of reading this? And we can always go ahead and revert just the move of the tabs. So I think it's really good. Thank you, Colin, for opening that up in the PR. And yes, down here, and that will help make sure to have that conversation. Yeah, thank you. All right. I'm gonna put a timeout a little bit on the maturity model then, so that we have time to chat platform as a product paper, if that's okay with everybody. I think I'm glad you called that out, Colin. I think that was a good thing for us to talk about in like as a group before we get off this call, but I think we can take that back to Git now. So Michael, you want to give us an update on what's been going on with platform as a product initiative?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. We're going into our second research call this Thursday. We directionally kind of lined up on the research guide for anybody that cares to look. I linked everything at the top of the platform as product paper. If you just save that one link, that gets you into all parts of the work. And so you can review the research guide in terms of like what we're trying to achieve. Out of that, we broke out the a leader script and the builder script that we need to write, and a recruitment plan, something more detailed and actionable so that we can divide on. That's been worked on kind of asynchronously. We're going to put everything together this Thursday when we come together, and then next Thursday we're going to have a paper review. It's, the timing works because the research plan is going to be and the work around that is going to be really the context on reviewing the paper draft before we actually go into the research, to get a sense of how things might be reorganized or shaped around what we kind of think we might get out of the research. A lot of assumptions built into that. So, there's going to be a lot of healthy review after we actually go through synthesis and see what the paper actually looks like in the end. And that's where we're at.
Cool. Are you feeling like you're getting the amount of, like, is there any asks that you have for the group? Is there like is there gaps in coverage on things and things like that?
The more people that want to jump in and take a look and maybe participate and maybe take up pieces of the work. I know in the paper, in the way that kind of the maturity model work happened, the original platform paperwork, people are going to kind of gravitate to the parts of the paper that they, have a greater affinity or personal interest in, and work on that, contribute to that. So that'd be great. And then, in terms of like very immediate, discrete things, like Puya's reaching out to the end user group to start like coordinating with them. And we're all kind of thinking to our own personal networks in terms of outreach for leaders. We're not going to get any of those people through surveys, right? This is all going to be kind of CNCF network, our personal networks. The idea is that if we, we're not going for great numbers here. We're not going for, some huge aggregate kind of data. We're going for depth. If we can get to, honestly, between like 6 to 8 groups of people, that means like a leader from a company, and through them, maybe referrals to a few builders on their team that were actively involved in putting the platform together. So we have that view from the top down and bottom up. That's going to get us a lot of really rich information. And the goal is obviously to get an understanding of how they went about, like putting together the strategy and executing on it. How much of it was conscious? How much of it was accidental? How much of it was just like the culture that enabled this kind of work to happen in the first place? Part of that is also, we're trying to map out our recruitment criteria, right? How do we define what a successful platform is? What are the proxies for that? How can we, find the right folks to talk to, so we're not, having a lot of false starts and dead ends, and realizing in the interview too late that these are actually not great candidates for the insights we're looking for.
Hey, Michael, can you drop the link into the chat? I can't find you yet.
Yep.
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much. This is consistent with the work that we're doing.
Oh, great. Yeah. So anybody who's interested, this Thursday.
I'm interested.
To come. Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, if you save that, that is going to be kind of the source of truth on everything. Try to make it as easy as possible. Links will be updated. If you have that, you'll be able to find everything else.
Awesome.
Awesome. It sounds like it's coming along really well, which is really good to hear. So I know it's a long journey, but it makes it worth it.
Yeah. think it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
One quick thought for maybe post KubeCon, totally about just scheduling of the meetings, the regular meetings. I think they're on right now. We're on like a Tuesday and a Wednesday and a Thursday, and it's kind of like back to back to back for the app delivery meetings. It's kind of stacking up a little bit. I want to get into the platform or into the product ones, but it's just a lot to every single day in a row. And I was just, maybe we can look at staggering, since we're already on a bi-weekly, like staggering weeks or doing something like that might be helpful to some folks. Just wanted to get the thought out of my head for, again, probably post KubeCon, worry about it it's a problem for tomorrow us.
Yeah, there was not a great deal of thought around coordinating with all the other work. That's a good call out. The other thing is, obviously, as people kind of move off of the maturity model work, frees up a lot of focus and bandwidth and meeting time.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting over there with you.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. So are we going to move on to this cloud native operational excellence that I've been meaning to learn about?
That was the first 30 minutes. So the gentleman who came wasn't feeling well, so asked if he could kind of do the first 30. Sorry, but the recording will be out. So hi everyone that's watching the recording. Yes, so the recording, Josh will load that up and post it in Slack. So it was definitely very interesting, and I guess I would summarize it as just the start of a good conversation. And the thing I would most encourage is if you haven't joined their Slack public channel, which is CNOE-public, go ahead in there, and there's definitely excitement around some of the things that they're working on, and you'll definitely be able to be in touch with what's going on there. So maybe as the one takeaway that I can do quickly at the end of our call here.
Yeah, the feeling that I got too was there, like most of our conversation was around kind of who it's intended for, almost, without really calling it out. Their stuff seems more kind of implementation focused and folks who need to pick something up and go with it and then like figure out the patterns that it follows. And our approach here has been more, I guess you could say, top down, but like let's focus on the concepts and the why and the what, and then maybe some of that like kind of higher architect level kind of stuff. I'm not trying to take away from either side, but it felt like there clearly is a complement there, and we're not really being competitive. Maybe some alignment over the capabilities and some of the aspects would be helpful, but just summarizing that a little bit for you, Michael.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think
That was a good
summary.
discussion.
Awesome.
I'm definitely going to be over there looking at those patterns.
Yeah. As I said,
But he was totally right. Yeah.
I'm super excited to see like how they grow up from the tech. Because right now it's just such low level tech, and I'm like, oh, but like some of that is because we have to, because that's the tech we have. How do we build the thing how do we build the future? And that's what I was sort of pushing on. So
yeah, a lot of our early conversation with the white paper and with the model, we did a lot of blocking and tackling to keep out of, the picking a product. And it wasn't necessarily the kingmaker thing. There are a limited number of product, like Argo is obviously the big one that a lot of people are using right now, but they've gone ahead and said, okay, that's good. We've talked about it enough. We need to do something now. Here's the do, which is totally useful. The time for us with the white paper, it just wasn't the right time for that.
Yeah. Agreed. Cool. Yeah, got a couple minutes. If anyone has any topics that we haven't covered yet that they'd like to raise and talk about. All right, well, give you all a few minutes back in your day. Maybe you'll be able to run and grab a quick tea before the next meeting. But yeah, thank you all for coming. It's been a really good one today. You see us on the regular. Come back. We love seeing you. And we will. The one thing is, I think the next one may overlap with KubeCon, and so you may see that one disappear from the schedule. Let me double check that while we're all here, actually.
I saw something
No,
from
it
Josh.
doesn't. It's the week
I think he
after.
already killed it.
Yay.
Yeah. Oh, sweet.
Or I have one on my calendar for the week after, which either it means he's moved it or that it was already set for that. So cool. I think we're all set. I think it's just the tag meeting maybe is the one that got canceled, so not the working group one.
Great.
All right. Well, I will see some of you in Chicago and hopefully all of you back on calls in a couple weeks.
We're good. Thank
Have
you
a good
so
day,
much.
y'all.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Bye.